Welcome to Mr. Teach Film Preach. Click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Also, don't forget to comment down below what are your 5 favorite films of 2023. Let us know what are your favorite, what were the ones that were disappointing, and did you agree with our list? Which one did you agree with more? Let us know down below, and don't forget to click that like button and subscribe. So today we are doing the top 5 favorite films of 2023, and I have yet again, for the second year in a row, my guest, my friend back on the channel, Chad. Chad, welcome to Mr. Teach.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mr. Teach Film Preach. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm curious to see what you actually picked this year, because last year, our lists were almost very similar, or at least they were similar, but just different orders.
We don't tell each other at all, like, who's going to be on our list, what is and isn't going to make the cut, what our favorite film is, right? It's not the highest grossing or the most critically acclaimed movie. I know that's a different video for you.
Yeah, how did you make your list this year?
This year was hard to pick a 5 favorites because there was a lot of great movies this year. So many different genres, lots of biopics, horror, animated. I picked 5 stories that I really connected with. Really well told. Not all of them are the best movies of the year, but they're just ones that I connected with, that I really enjoyed sitting in the theater for or watching at home.
I also chose movies that, like, I just stuck with me. Like, I remember them. I'm still thinking about them to, like, this day, you know?
Right on.
Awesome.
Let's go.
So let's start with some honorable mentions. Movies that didn't quite make the list. They were right there. Rattle off some of your honorable mentions.
So my honorable mentions, these are all movies I really enjoyed. And these are some big movies. I've got one of the highest grossing films of all time in Barbie.
Wow.
On my honorable mentions. It was a great film. I enjoyed it. I'm Just Ken is stuck in my head all the time.
I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10.
The Holdovers is a movie that I really enjoyed, especially watching it around Christmas this time of year. I thought it was a heartwarming story, but just not quite on the list. Napoleon was a massive feature and a movie that I enjoyed, but...
one that you and I saw together.
Yeah, we saw it together.
Yeah.
I had it on my list. I took it off. It was kind of on and off. My last honorable mention is probably one that will surprise you that it's not on my list, considering that my highest played song on Spotify this year was Peaches by Jack Black. My #1 most played. So the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I just couldn't put it on the list because I connect to it for nostalgia reasons, not necessarily because I thought it was the greatest story. Those are my 4 honorable mentions.
So what do you feel about Jack Black not being nominated for Peaches for the Academy Awards?
Well, I think it's the biggest snub of all time.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Yeah, it was such a popular song, but that maybe like me and like a lot of school-age children agree with that. So.
My first honorable mention is also one of the highest grossing movies of all time, which is Barbie. Yeah, love this movie, love musicals. I'm a big musical fan, so the fact that they had that great massive number in this show, and you know, it's just a fun movie.
I'm just Ken.
No One Will Save You,
which
is this great sci-fi alien home invasion kind of story, silent film almost, which is a really cool concept, and it was just a beautifully shot, well done movie. Also, because it's Christmas time, The Holdovers is also on my list as well. Yeah,
your honorable mention.
Honorable mention, sorry, on my honorable mention list. And I was surprised at how much I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was just going to be an okay film. Never doubt Alexander Payne.
And Paul Giamatti.
And Paul Giamatti. The next film on my list was actually number 5 for the longest time.
It got bumped out.
Came off the list about 4 different times, but that one is Gran Turismo.
Oh, okay.
I had no desire to go see this movie. Zero. Had no care. I don't give a damn about Gran Turismo, the game. I saw the trailers, didn't care for it, and I loved it. I had a great time. So Gran Turismo is on the list, and those are my honorable mentions.
Jesus Christ. You ooze talent.
Let's jump into our actual list, buddy.
Right on.
Okay, let's jump into our top 5 favorite films of 2023. Chad, what is your number 5?
Number 5 is one that was actually an honorable mention for you, and one that really surprised me because this is a genre that I don't typically vibe with. But I do love a good thriller, and I love a movie that affects me to a point where affect my emotions in a certain way. Number 5 on my list is No One Will Save You.
Nice.
This is a movie that I didn't really know much about. I literally read the description. It was recommended to me. And I said, okay, alien invasion, woman fights off aliens in her home. Interesting enough. Pretty early on in the movie, and especially if you're watching it at home in the dark alone, it really makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I put it number 5 on the list because there were some questions in the ending that I really left me asking a lot more.
What are you talking about?
I haven't felt that type of response to an alien movie since like Signs with Mel Gibson. So there was maybe 5 lines of dialogue the whole movie, and Caitlin Dever stole the show. She carried that movie on her back. It was scary and it was intense. It was just an interesting story.
Amazing cinematography in that movie.
Absolutely.
The way they shot the film, the way that the camera moves throughout the house, especially during the home invasion, and like just really well executed.
There's some of those Jaws-like moments where you don't quite see the alien at first, and it's really got you feeling anxious.
Yeah.
But then eventually everything's out there.
Yep.
So.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. Number 5.
That's a wise decision.
My number 5 is, I would say, the best action film I saw this year. As someone who loves action movies, I'm always trying to figure out, like, how did they do these stunts? How did they do these things? And I was flabbergasted with this movie, and that was John Wick Chapter 4. It is so incredible what they did with the stunts. Chad Stahelski, the director, did an amazing job with his stunt team, as he's done with the last 3 movies. And I like the John Wick series, but I don't think I've ever loved it. I love this movie. And this movie blew my mind with the action scenes, the stunt coordination, the way that they moved the camera throughout the action scenes. The scene where he has that shotgun with dragon's breath, but the camera's like up top and it moves throughout the house with him. That's a video game come to life. The roundabout when they're getting hit by cars and like he's throwing people into vehicles, like the way that they pulled that off, just amazing. So the technical aspects of this movie are what projected it to be become like my number 5 of the year. If you can tell a story with this much beauty, artistry, and horrible violence, but like in a sort of cinematic operatic way, it just impresses me. So I think for me, it has to go on my top 5.
How many series of movies or movies that go past a trilogy can you name where the 4th one might be the best one, right?
What a lovely day!
Obviously, people will love whatever movie they love. The original is a classic.
Yeah.
But this was one where you don't really expect much because it's the 4th movie in an installment in a series of movies. And it really brought it home to the point where I think it's arguably one of the best or the best John Wick movie.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 4 there, Chad?
This is one that I rewatched a couple of times, and it was way back earlier in the year, back in March, directed by Ben Affleck, and that's Air.
Nice.
I like Ben Affleck. I love Matt Damon. Like, we always know when they get together, that's a power duo. It's going to be an interesting film.
Yeah.
What was so cool about this story is that it wasn't about Michael Jordan. And, like, I love a good sports drama. Moneyball is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love sports movies. And this was one that was a sports movie, but it was adjacent. It was about the chase. It wasn't about the athlete. I just thought that was so unique. Maybe not home run by Ben Affleck, but it was definitely a triple.
See ya!
This was one that really vibed with me, and it was easy for me to watch again.
I love Ben Affleck's outfits in that movie.
The hair, and the period, like it just the sweatsuits, and the curly hair, the gold chains. Like, I love it.
It's amazing. Like in the movie, Michael Jordan's like you never see him, like, you never like meet him, and I think that's such a smart filmmaking decision. It's not about the athlete; it was about the people that brought this company together with this athlete.
Not a surprise at all. Another powerful performance from Viola Davis.
Yeah.
She was a killer in that movie.
She's one of my favorites. One of my favorites.
Thank you.
And number 4 for me for this year is probably one of the most acclaimed critically acclaimed movies of the year. One that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and that is Oppenheimer.
All right.
Christopher Nolan just knocked it out of the park yet again with another great film, but I find that a lot of times his movies have the same sort of tone and feel to it. This felt a little bit different. This felt a little bit more personalized. Of course, it's a historical drama, so they have the like black and white shots, like they usually do, but it actually served a purpose in the storytelling aspect. The editing is fantastic in this movie. The cinematography looks gorgeous. This film looked amazing. Now, I saw this on Barbenheimer, and I did Barbie first and then Oppenheimer. Looking back, I might have done it the opposite way because after Oppenheimer, I went home and I was like, my existential dread. Robert Downey Jr. was fantastic. He's going to get nominated. He might even win for Best Supporting Actor this year. Cillian Murphy, he's going to get nominated. This might be his Oscar year. And honestly, this could be a Christopher Nolan Oscar year. Would I necessarily give it to him for directing for this movie? I don't know. I think he's done some other things that are better. This might be a career Oscar win for him. I can't even go through the cast list. I chose not to write down the cast list in my notes because I was like, no,
There's so many people in that movie.
It'll take forever. And again, Matt Damon having Air and Oppenheimer in the same year, like good year for him.
Matt Damon.
Just a fantastic film. I'm a big history buff when it comes to World War I, World War II, and this movie being around the Manhattan Project. This was a big source of like excitement and hope for this year that the movie was going to be great, and it didn't disappoint. Chad, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is one that may or may not be on both of our lists.
Okay.
I picked movies that I loved, great stories, and this was a great story, but this is one that was also visually stunning. And this is the only animated movie that made it onto my top 5, and that's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Nice.
This is a movie that did something that I think not a lot of sequels can do, and that's it beat its predecessor. The original Into the Spider-Verse was, again, it was incredible, it was visually stunning, but they took that concept and took it a step even further with the different animation styles for different universes. All of the different characters had something significant to add. The first one with like the Spider Pig and Noir Spider, like, it was really funny, and we had a lot of that same humor, but it took itself a little more seriously. And I thought that this was by far one of my favorite movies of the year. It's one of the most rewatchable movies of the year. I've definitely watched it a few times already. It's a movie that transcends age. Like, a lot of kids will have watched it because it's Spider-Man, but a lot of film fans, movie fans, it's a great story. And the continuation of this arc for Miles Morales, I think, is gonna launch Spider-Man into all sorts of other live action movies. Haley Steinfeld, I thought, was really good in her role as Gwen Stacy. If you can just meld into your seat in the theater and just really take it in, it was absolutely a visual spectacle. Yeah, this is a film that I was shocked at how much I liked it. I was going in with high expectations, and they might have even beat those expectations. Like, that's pretty impressive.
That's amazing.
Great film.
We're halfway through. Number 3 for you.
So my number 3 film is one that I've been anticipating for a long time. This movie blew me away, and this was The Iron Claw. And this was a movie that you and I saw the other night. I remember we walked out of the theater, I was like, I need to take some time and think about it. I thought about it all night. I thought about it all the next day. And I just loved the world that I was in, and I fell in love with the characters. And if you know anything about the story, it's so tragic and sad, but also beautifully told. It's trying to tell this story about fathers and sons, and about family, and about tradition, and about masculinity, and about all these really cool concepts that they personify both inside of the ring in the matches, and also, just as much as this movie is a wrestling movie, it's a family drama in the life of Kevin Von Erich and his family. It was such an incredible artistic approach to the subject matter while still being thoroughly entertaining. Like, the wrestling scenes are great. They're so much fun. Zac Efron got jacked for this role.
Yeah.
Like, he's swole. Like, the definition of swole. He does a great physical performance in this film. I think that's what's so impressive. But his acting range, it was the most impressive. This is, I think, his best performance he's ever done. At least some award nominations in general. I don't know if he will. We kind of talked about this, and I would be disappointed if they didn't, but I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't know if he has necessarily the love and respect from everyone at the Academy, but maybe this will be a chance for him to like get nominated in the future. I don't know, but to me, this is one of my favorite performances of this year, and I really love this movie.
I was really curious if it would make your list, where it would end up on your list. This was a way that you saw him in another light, and that's just one of multiple incredible performances by the actors in the movie.
Jeremy Allen White from The Bear was great in this film, and Harris Dickinson and Lily James was awesome. Sean Durkin, who directed this film, did an amazing job penning it. He wrote it and directed it, shot it really well. I thought it was so impressive. And there's a scene at the end of the movie where like it got me. I teared up. Like, I was like, wow, Zac Efron did it. So The Iron Claw is my number 3 favorite film of the year. Let's hear it. What is your number 2 film?
Well, this is one we've talked about already, and it is the grand epic by Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan, in all of his movies, he always does an incredible job with the sound design in the film. The juxtaposition, the contrast of the silence compared to the big bangs and explosions. Like, I thought he did a really good job in how he told that story. I only saw it one time in the theater because it's draining. It's a lot.
It's a long movie.
But the stories that I picked for my top 5 are movies that affected me, and sometimes that affect is physical. And Christopher Nolan does such a good job, like think of Dunkirk and some of the other movies he's done, at making you uncomfortable. And you really felt these people actually could end the world. He took that idea and really made you feel, even though you know that's not what happens, because we're all still here. The switch in the tone in that movie from act to act to act. Some of it worked, some of it I had a lot of questions, but it shifted in a way that made sense and like really made you feel so many different range of emotions. So Oppenheimer for me, almost number 1.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Number 2 film for me this year was a movie, again, way back in March. This is something that I've actually been sitting on for a long time. And I reviewed this movie, and probably one of the lower viewed videos on my channel. Not a lot of people saw the film, but the people who did love this movie. And that is How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
I remember you coming out of that movie and you were texting me like, I am blown away. I am so surprised by this movie that I didn't expect, I didn't see coming. And I remember thinking, oh, I have to see it, because you were texting me moments after seeing it.
Have you seen it?
No.
I knew it. I was just flabbergasted. You get an indie film that they don't make for a lot of money. You know, they don't really have any big actors in it. And it comes out of left field, and you're like, where did this movie come from? I could see how some people might see this film and be like, it's very preachy, because it is a very far leftist look at politics, about like our world, our environment. I mean, it's literally called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, so it's about domestic terrorism. But if you look at the film as a thriller, just straight through and through, filmmaking wise, it's brilliant. The way that they put it together, the storytelling, the flashbacks to like how the characters come together, it's a little bit of like recruiting people and stuff like that.
You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
But it's also like a heist film, but it's not a heist because it's a sabotage film where they're planting bombs on this pipeline, but they're all just like regular day people, and it's brilliant how well it's executed. I felt tense the entire time I was in the theater. I was there all alone. No one else wanted to go see it. And it was
Whoops.
So it was so amazing how well they crafted this film. I thought for a moment after seeing the film, I was like, maybe it's just one of those films that because it was so surprising out of left field, I'm giving it a lot higher marks than I should be. But then I rewatched it twice now since then, and no, it still hits the same. I still think it's one of the most incredible films of this year. Not just one of my favorite films of the year, but I think it's one of the best films of the year.
I haven't had a chance to see it, but I did watch your review on it.
You were one of those little viewers numbers there. Thank you.
One of three.
Thank you. Let's get down to brass tacks.
I have a feeling, knowing that you've heard my top four, you can guess what my top movie is. And I'm really trying to not make this recency bias because it's the most recent movie that we've seen. But this is a movie that I was looking forward to.
I would say you were looking forward to this movie much more than I was.
We should probably say it's the Iron Claw. So I grew up interested in wrestling and following that world, and I knew the story of the Von Erichs. A real life, true story that is so beyond tragic that I knew it was going to impact me in some way. And I have a big family. I have lots of brothers, and this movie at its core is about brotherhood. It is about family, playing Fritz Von Erich, the father, Holt McCallany.
From Mindhunter, the TV show.
He really brings alive a person who was so blind by his own ego and ambition that he literally let his family crumble around him. And I thought that that performance and bringing that idea and that character to life was hard to watch in a good way.
I audibly was like, what?
Yeah.
Or like you heard, or I would look over you, I was like, no, did he really just say that?
Honey, what's wrong with you?
We saw this movie and I went home immediately and started reading more about it, researching it, because I was so curious. If a movie not only impacts you emotionally, but also makes you curious, that's all you can ask for as a filmmaker. You mentioned that moment at the end of the movie where Zac Efron really impacts you emotionally, touched your heart, and it was so hard. After watching everything that this family, and specifically Kevin Von Erich, played by Zac Efron, went through to get to where he ended up, was such an incredible transformation. And Zac Efron, in his performance of that character, said so much in the moments of silence. I noticed in the movie that I was really curious to see, being someone who knows about wrestling, who is a wrestling fan.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
I was very curious for how they filmed the actual wrestling scenes, the fights. And it turns out that they actually, all of the wrestling scenes in that movie were filmed as one continuous shot. So they actually had to do the training and go through, like, learn how to take bumps on the ropes and learn those moves.
Do a 4-minute match.
I can't get away from the fact that there may be some recency bias. It's a movie that I went into hoping to love. The true story of what happened to that family was so crazy that it deserved to be told in this format. It had that charm. It had a mix of those moments where you're really laughing and those moments where it's actually making you tear up. And for me, picking my 5 favorite movies of the year, this is a movie that touched a lot of those bases. So The Iron Claw, my top favorite movie of 2023.
Didn't do too, but I was like, I'm gonna look really bad.
People who haven't seen the movie are, why is he assaulting him? I don't even know what's left. I'm thinking it might be one that I already mentioned.
Could be.
I think it might be
This one,
drum roll.
probably the most controversial one. But my number one pick of 2023 is Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
You suck, you jackass.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
You had me on the edge of my seat, and then it's like, lost me, done.
You dirty little liar.
Realsies, you've already mentioned this film. It's already on your list. This is one of the best films of the year, hands down, without a doubt. And that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Masterpiece in animated filmmaking. It's a beautiful, gorgeous film. Like you already mentioned, the different ways that they filmed or animated each world. Like, I love that Gwen Stacy's world's like all these watercolors.
Yeah.
And then you go to Miles, it's that kind of spray paint sort of blurry sort of world. And then the techno sort of like slick style that Miguel O'Hara, kind of runs, right? So all these different animation styles in one film, I just think it's so brilliantly done. We already talked about how impactful the story is. It takes itself much more seriously. And I literally wrote in my notes, ask Chad, is this better than the original? But you already answered that, so I don't have to ask you that.
Well, the original won the Oscar for Best Animated, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's ever been animated movie franchise that was legit in the running for both movies to win. And there was a ton of really, really good animated movies this year, but that movie is probably so far and away the favorite to win Best Picture for Animated Feature again, which is crazy to think.
Oh my God.
Like, you think about how big Frozen is,
Yeah.
the movie Frozen. The second Frozen film didn't win.
Loser.
I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so I know there's a little bit of bias there, but just from a storytelling perspective, character development perspective, acting, the voice actors, like Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara, like legit scary, like legit so good. His voice is so propulsive in this film.
I think the success of the first one really catapulted a lot of actors wanting to be involved in the project the second time around.
Totally. It's one of those movies that I think the action might even be better in this film.
I can't argue with you. It was on both of our lists. We did it again. Well, we had some differences.
Yeah.
We had some that neither of us were, but we also had a bunch of overlap.
Yeah, like the Iron Claw and Across the Spider-Verse and Oppenheimer, but
It's a great year for movies.
it was.
So that's crazy. Top 5 movies of the year. We did this last year. And, this is our annual thing. The first time we did it, you threw to me for the outro.
Yeah,
And I
did.
screwed it up. I've been watching more reviews.
Okay.
I know how it goes.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Chad. We appreciate it, and I appreciate your thoughts and your lists. I can't wait to see what other people think of it too. So make sure you click that like button and subscribe down below. Let me know what were your favorite films of the year, your top 5. Let me know what you thought down below, and make sure you click that like button. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for joining us today on Mr. Teach Film Preach. Stay focused, stay awesome, and as always,
Let's get hot.
take it off.
Let's get taught.
Oh, you actually did it! Bravo! Thanks, buddy. Good job.